Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome along. We have gone live slightly early so we can catch the end of the final as well. Luke Littler currently 4-3 up on Michael van Gerwen in the final. Myself, Phil Bars and Carwyn Evans taking you through the fallout bar for night 13 in Birmingham. How are you doing, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. It's sort of funny night of darts, really, isn't it? Nobody's set the world alight, but is Luke Littler keeping his best to last, I guess? How are you, Phil?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Different watching it at home for a change and without trying to, picking holes in stuff that we don't normally see because we're at the venue. Do you know what I mean? Like, I look at some stuff editorially and go, well, that doesn't make sense. And why have they done that? And that looks shit. I like that. Not so much that, and so on. It's, different watching it at home for a change.
Yeah, I bet. And yeah, I know what you mean. As in the cameramen have got lost a few times, and I think the players themselves have got lost a few times trying to find a big single. But you know, it's all adds to the excitement of the Premier League as the playoffs come closer and closer now, of course.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I was Littler. We just missed the 164. That'd have been brutal. That
would have summed him up here, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Look, this is huge. And MVG right in the corner, 4-4 in the final. Matthew, Jar is there for us tonight. Jar lives about 20 minutes from the venue instead of my 2 hour there, 2 hour back. So look, it just made sense for Jar to go and do it. Seeing he lives so close. I was like, I'll have a night off for a change, but don't worry, I'll be back in Leeds next week at the First Direct Arena. But look, we don't know the outcome of the final yet, but either way, that race for the O2 is now looking slimmer and slimmer. I think we can discount Bunting, Dobie, and I'm even chucking Cross in there now as well. I think their races are done.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. One of them needed to win tonight, really, to keep themselves in the hunt, and especially now with sort of Price getting to 23 as well. You can pretty much say the top three are there, I want to say, and then I know mathematically that's not the case, but I think it's going to be hard for both Aspinall and MVG to get enough points to get past Price. So yeah, the bottom three, their race is on for this year.
Well, I think it all depends on, look, if Littler wins this, I think Price will breathe a lot easier. If MVG can somehow rescue the situation here, then Price is looking over his shoulder because of the scenarios and so on. So look, Price at the moment is Littler's number one fan, considering everything that's going on. They want to keep MVG but below him, and Littler has just taken leg number 9 to lead 5-4 in the final. We thought we'd tell you something a bit different before we go into the night. We'll talk you through what's going on. And look MVG, look, overall, he's done okay tonight.
Yeah, as in, we've often discussed here on the Fallout Bar that he's had a good quarter-final, decent average, and he's just dropped off the cliff in the semi-final. Yes, the match against Price wasn't great, but obviously the last leg skews everything up when it comes to stats and averages. But he's been better, he's looked hungrier, and it's probably the best we've seen him play in the Premier League this year by a country mile.
Yeah, and look, wouldn't it be so Michael van Gerwen? And I don't want to cast Nathan Aspinall aside because it looks like Littler is potentially going to win it here 6-4, but it would be so Michael van Gerwen not to win a night, just get into the playoffs and then find something on one night.
Oh, if somebody could do that, it is MVG, isn't it? We know his game isn't anywhere near his best, but he finds a way, and that's what champions do. They find a way of qualifying for the finals night, which is all you've got to do ultimately over the course of 16 weeks, and then having 20 good legs of that. If somebody could do that, it is MVG.
Yeah, and look, Littler's on 52 to break the record. So let's hold our breath. He will return. And for the first person to win 5 nightly titles in the... Oh, he's missed a big number. Oh, is there enough? He's going to get a dart at tops. And he's missed it. He's allowed MVG a chance. Maybe there's a twist to come, Carwyn.
Oh, it's dangerous. It's dangerous when you give him a sniff.
Oh, he can't take it, though. Oh, to be fair, the dart at tops wasn't great, but the dart at double 10 was thrown well.
Yes, yeah, and you've got to hit those chances again against Littler, because he doesn't give you too many, does he? And that's why he's top of the table.
No, and Luke Littler has just broken the record. He is the first person to win 5 nightly titles in this era and incarnation of the Premier League. He has broken the record, and look, congratulations to him. He's really set his stall out early, and look, he was at the O2 a long time ago, even though not mathematically. He's finally broken the night. However, just on tonight, there are questions around Luke at the moment. Look, we know when he flicks the switch, we know it's there. But we've seen him changing darts. In Liverpool, we've seen him arguing back with the crowd, and tonight he looked disinterested for long periods at the moment. For the first time, and look, I fully appreciate that he is very young into his professional career and very much learning on the job. But the last 3 weeks or so, this is the first time I think we've got more questions than answers from Luke.
Yeah, and I think he's overthinking things. He's trying to create maybe more on social media, more for himself than he needs to, and just play his darts. Because when he just plays darts, at the moment, nobody touches him. Yes, Price has beaten him quite a few times in recent history, but the reality is, when Littler finds that gear that nobody else has got, he batters anything and anyone in front of him. And is it complacency? Is it tiredness catching up with him? Because obviously, most 18-year-olds, you struggle to get them out of bed before lunchtime, and that's not me stereotyping. But we're asking him to travel across the country, across a continent, for 3, 4, 5 days a week. It's a lot to ask. And yes, obviously, there are great rewards that come with all that travel, but it must be catching up with him, this sort of rise to stardom, because everyone wants to see him, and the extra workload that comes with being world champion in the Premier League, and all the press and everything on top of actually playing darts.
Yeah, look, 100%. And look, he's very much learning on the job is the thing. He hasn't had what we call a proper apprenticeship or anything like that. And look, he's smiling now on stage, and that demeanour is there. And hopefully, look, he's had a little wobble. I will say, chuck the other equipment away. Look, his manufacturer won't like this, but the Gen 1s are the ones that work. The Prodigy Dart and the World Championship Dart, yes, they look nice, but they don't work for him. The coating obviously feels different in his hands. They slide a lot to as you look at the board, they slide left a lot into the 5s. As soon as he changes back, it's normal for him. So at this point, fuck the rest off and just play with the ones that you're comfortable with.
Exactly, because people will buy your darts. The more they see you, the more they see you win. And as you say, Gen 1s are working. Stick to what you know and let the darts do the talking. Yes, sales and all that jazz is handy, but ranking money, climbing up, sort of pushing Luke Humphries all the way, winning titles, that's what's going to build your fan base even further. And then they will buy whichever darts you're throwing. As in, I think, yeah, he's playing mind games with himself, if something, and he doesn't need to, because he's such a good darts player. Just stick to what's working, and yeah, hopefully after this wobble now, we'll see him back to his best, and he'll realise himself, the dart is working, I'm not going to fiddle with it.
Yeah, 100%. Our chat room is nice and busy as always. Shouty is in. Malachi, how we doing? Matthew, we spoke to earlier. Josh, I'm very good, mate. The washing machine is over in the corner. Don't worry about that. It's still here. How we doing? Salesman, good to have you all in. I say we went live a little bit early just to talk over the final minutes of the final. But look, let's dive into it as a whole. How would you sum up Birmingham night? Chat room, get involved as well. How would you sum up the night here on night 13, Birmingham? I know my thoughts, but we'll let you go first, Carl. We'll let you do the nice one first.
Quality probably hasn't been up there tonight, but in terms of now where the Premier League goes for the rest of the season, I think it's been a big night, as in Littler, after a 5-week wobble, sort of just reestablishes his sort of his dominance at the top and getting that record-breaking night. Humphreys, still a lot of questions over him. Fortunately for him, he did the hard work early on. Price, despite losing to MVG, will probably be happy with how the final's gone because he's maintained his lead over Aspinall and sort of only lost a point to MVG. And then MVG Aspinall, that race for the 4th place. I think MVG will love the fact that he's back in the top 4 and having had a good night sort of playing wise to go with it. So it's sort of bubbling up nicely. So what you want from the Premier League is reaching week 13, week 14 and quite a lot still to play for.
Yeah, agreed. And so look, the darts itself, I agree. It wasn't a stellar night. There wasn't a wow moment in the night where you go, oh, that was the moment of the night, or that was the game of the night. I think it was a very topsy-turvy night just in terms of the players themselves. And look, at this point, tension is there. They know what's on the line is the thing. They can see the O2, or some of them can't now, and so on. But again, it just seemed, just watching it, it just seemed a little bit flat in the arena. And I thought Liverpool was very flat last week. Birmingham just seemed flat as well. And look, I've been to all the Premier League venues multiple times. Birmingham is certainly one of the ones that isn't up there for me, and is one I could quite easily just get rid of.
Yeah, no, it feels like the Midlands is quite stacked, isn't it? And sort of maybe it is time to look at a change of venue for one of them. I think it's a long format, and if you're sort of asking, my English geography isn't great, but I'm sort of thinking Birmingham, Nottingham, you got Sheffield. It's a lot of sort of ask for the same or different fans to sort of turn up week after week. And I think as well, the players now, because they're sort of starting to see where they are likely to finish in that table, I just think their momentum and their drive is dwindling as well, unless they've got a lot to play for, which is maybe how and why MVG has raised his game tonight, maybe more than others.
Yeah, no, 100%. Birmingham to Antwerp. Yeah, Antwerp or Poland. For me, Belgium or Poland are the two that are tried and tested. We've seen have got good fan base from the World Series and Euro Tour. So yeah, yes, they personally, they'd be the two that I'd look at going to next. Tony says Luke needs to show the middle finger. Not for 1 minute do I think that any manufacturer puts pressure on players to use the equipment. Maybe players feel obliged to, but I don't think the manufacturer ever puts pressure on the players to say you have to throw with these. Maybe that there is a tale of, yeah, maybe you should use them type thing. But yeah, one thing is interesting that we came on early, but tonight was long and meant to be off air at 11. The final didn't start till near on 11. And look, with this changing demographic that we've got in darts, mainly because of Littler, kids will have not been able to see this final because they've got school tomorrow and so on. We've heard Eddie talk about in boxing that, hang on a minute, the main event starting too late. We're missing prime time. Is there a cause to maybe start earlier and finish earlier, so the final's going on around 10 o'clock, and it's done by 10:30 or something like that?
I think the problem we've got then is you sort of you run the risk of people not being able to get there from work or having to book time off work and maybe weighing up that options. I think what's happened tonight, probably that hasn't happened any other night this year, is the biggest scoreline was 6-3, as in previously we've seen a few 6-1, 6-2s, where tonight they've all been pretty close, and we haven't seen massive averages where games are finished in 15, 20 minutes, and they've gone on a bit longer. I do think it has gone on a bit tonight, maybe, and it doesn't help as well when the atmosphere feels a bit flat, so it sort of naturally drags a bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's a tough one really, because do you run the risk of losing people in venues if you start earlier, as opposed to maybe people who could record it at home and watch the final the next morning or whatever, if it does get on a bit late for them?
Yeah, no, it's just an interesting scenario, because as I say, I see Eddie speaking about the boxing recently, and he said, "No, look, we want our main event to go earlier now, so it's done and dusted, and people can get." It's just an interesting, it's just an interesting thing that, like, could you imagine if tonight we've had a load of 6-5s as well, that it would still be going on and on and on type thing.
Oh yeah, and it does drag a bit then, especially as I mentioned that it feels a bit flat in the venue. I think had it been at a venue where it was buzzing and the crowd were bouncing, it may not have felt as long. But yeah, an 11 o'clock start does feel late, especially as you say when they're meant to be off air. As in just under 4.5 hours for 7 games of darts. Yeah, it does feel a bit long.
It just seemed tonight, and again, you guys watch more than me in chat room. You can, like, where we're in the venue, we get the live feed, so we don't see everything, we don't hear everything. Tonight, watching it at home, there seems to be an awful lot of needless promos and waffle. So, I'm not talking about when it's insightful analysis. I like it, but there seems to be a lot of needless filling in terms of promos and videos and so on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's felt like that the last few weeks, actually, where especially maybe between the quarters and semis, there's more talking than there needs to be. Because obviously the first semi-final, those players would have been on, or they'd have been off, I should say, by 8:30. So they'll have pretty much had an hour anyway to sort of to recover. So I agree. I think there's too much chit-chat in between, as in effectively, worst case scenario, you've got to play 33 legs of that. At this level, they should be able to do that without needing too much of a downtime in between matches.
Yeah, agreed. Evening video Smurf. How we doing? Alistair, Nico is in. No, I'm not there tonight. Jar's on duty for us this evening because he literally lives 20 minutes from the venue. So I was like, you can crack on, Jar, and I'm going to have a Thursday night at home. Yeah, agreed. They could start at 7 p.m. sharp. Yes, so when the Premier League was in Berlin and Rotterdam, it started the program started 7 p.m. local time, which would have been 6 p.m. here. So again, for you guys, it was oh, this is nice. We're done and we're off air by 10 and so on, and it's things like that. But let's go into this evening. Oh, I tell you what, I've left my TV on. Darts Gold, Dennis Priestley versus Phil Taylor. The match play 2005. Hello. Look, Stephen Bunting will look back and go, I had more than enough chances to beat Luke early here.
This was Stephen Bunting summing up his 2025 Premier League campaign, in control of a game. Probably you should win from 4-2 up, really, to then just find himself having to win the 10th leg to force that decider. And it's just, it's been a long campaign for Bunting, and he probably just cannot wait for it to end now, because nothing's gone his way.
Yeah, look, 100%. And then Dobie against Aspinall. Dobie will be so disappointed because he just didn't turn up. Is the thing? He just wasn't there tonight. We know Chris is. He's last season. His power scoring was superb, but that seems to have gone walkabout at the moment, and there's question marks. I think Chris just needs just to regather himself and recompose himself at the moment.
Yeah, you're right there, and I think what we've seen over the last sort of fortnight from him is his scoring not quite there, but his doubling is up to his doubling percentages, and he's sort of taken chances, maybe first, second dart instead of fourth or fifth dart. But tonight is just scoring wasn't there, and he just wasn't clinical enough. And I don't want to say he knew the writing was on the wall for him for this year, but it just felt like he'd sort of lost that maybe belief that he could still squeeze into the playoffs.
Yeah, agreed. Connor, Jar lives in Birmingham, mate, so we've sent Jar there. Matthew, yes, I did have one eye on the Spurs game, of course. Again, just hilariously funny that it looks like either Spurs or United are going to have Champions League football next year. They've both been shite. But yeah, look, Dobie effectively done in the water now, and Aspinall moved through. Going to Bilbao. Mate, if I can get a ticket, I'm not going to go. If I haven't got a ticket, I'd rather watch it at home. But look, you never know. Gerwyn Price then again was good in his quarterfinal. Another big 2 points for him against Luke Humphreys. And look, Luke Humphreys missed a couple of match starts, and will be disappointed that through the game, I think, was it 3-3, and Humphreys had missed starts to win all 6 legs. Whether it was a dart at the ball or one dart in the combination, it felt like, although Gerwyn Price was playing brilliantly, he was hanging on to Humphreys' coattails at times, and then he was doing little pop finishes when Humphreys missed those chances.
Yeah, that was exactly it. As in, you look at this game and you've got to wonder how the hell Humphreys managed to lose. But that was it. Price hung on in there, gave himself a chance, and in that crucial sort of last leg shootout, took the turn plus finish. As in, it's just another sort of result for Humphreys now, where you're sort of thinking everything's right in his game, but he's not getting over the line. And he's fortunate that he did so well at the start of the Premier League campaign, or he'd be sort of stuck in that race for top 4, really. But because he did the hard work early on, he's in the playoffs, but he will not be going to the O2 filled with any sort of confidence or momentum unless something big changes in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, unless he goes and wins a Euro Tour and wins a couple of nights in the Premier League, and that then changes. And again, we're talking about summing up people's nights. Rob Cross, again, played well, but can't win a game is the thing. The average was good, but just under pressure, never thought that he was going to get into this one. And although he played well, MVG always seemed to be fairly comfortable.
Yeah, and it felt like they both knew the importance of this game in terms of the rest of the campaign, and MVG just sort of gave himself enough chances to win the game where Cross sort of stats-wise looked good on the doubles, but just didn't have enough chances. And if you're only going to get 6 starts at the outer ring against MVG, you've got to pin them all to beat him. But Cross just sort of, similar to Bunting, really, where he hasn't done much wrong, just he's not won enough matches. And that's the brutal reality of the Premier League. If you don't win games, you don't pick up points.
Yeah, look, about 100%. And in those semi-finals, again, I'm sure Nathan Aspinall is now back at the hotel thinking, I should have won that game. Again, he had Littler where he wanted him, and the last leg, Littler's nicked it, and after Nathan Aspinall had a dart at the bullseye, although it was partly blocked to win it and so on. It was a game that, when you're looking at it, I thought Nathan was the better player, but again, Littler found something when he needed to.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, because Littler has beaten Aspinall and Bunting so often, I feel like he lives in their heads rent-free. And if it comes down to a last leg shootout, they don't really believe that they're going to win that match. And Littler knows that. And he'll find a 140 or a 180 or something in the last leg shootout just to put him in control. And even though Aspinall missed a match start, you sort of had the feeling it was a hit and hope maybe more than realistically thinking he was going to hit it.
Yeah. No, 100%. We were talking about the overrun earlier. Just think it was slow games, too many promos, too much chit chat, and I think the producer stroke director got their timings wrong tonight. And then again, Price will be disappointed. We've already seen a social media post from him saying, "Look, played well in the quarterfinals." I think he said, and then I took my wife's arm onto the stage for the semi-finals, and it was a game where again it was never really in it. Is the thing? It was always Michael's to lose. You felt.
Oh yeah, 100%. And sort of Price took out a couple of big checkouts to make the scoreline maybe a bit more flattering to him than it should have been. As in, there was only ever one winner, and uncharacteristic of Price to sort of average so poor. Obviously, all the missed arse at a double make that look worse than it is, but it was a blip, and maybe in Price's eyes, top 4 is the target. Sort of the 2 points were enough for tonight, and he moves on, and it's not the end of the world. And he doesn't seem to beat himself up maybe as much now as he has done previously. Although I did find it interesting that he decided to throw his flight into the crowd a couple of legs early.
Yeah, that was quite funny. I've got to say, it was like schoolboy error there, Gezi. Good job you had some spares. Can I have that back, please?
Yeah.
Then the final itself, again, Michael had chances early on, was in front, and look, he had the chances. It wasn't as if Luke steamrolled him. It was MVG's misses that let Littler in to break the record.
Yes, and you sort of knew the longer the game was going on that eventually MVG would miss one of those chances he was getting to pinch legs, and it came in the 6th leg when he missed a dial tops of the 69 and
go 4-2 up, and then
and then sort of from there Littler turned the screw on, and I know MVG brought it back to 4-all, but that was after Littler missed for the 164, I think it was, wasn't it? So it was just it was a slow burner for the final, and yes, Luke's average ended up over the ton to get the record-breaking night win, but it wasn't sort of what we've expected from him recently. But after 5 weeks maybe of struggling in the Premier League, just getting over that sort of voodoo of winning the 5th night may change everything for him again leading up to the playoffs.
Yeah, look, because we know that had been on his mind. He wanted to break the record. When he got to 4, that was the first thing he said, I want the record. And maybe just that little added pressure that he was putting on himself to be the first, again, to win 5 nights at this, it paid its toll. But look, I'm interested now to see how he approaches this, because, look, we know he's not playing the Euro Tour this week. He's going to make his Sunday League football debut, which I'm all for in one way. However, could you imagine if he breaks a finger or an arm playing Sunday morning football? I'm not sure that's going to go down particularly well.
Or even going over on his ankle or something, his sort of standing foot. It's got disaster written all over it. And yes, I think again it shows sort of the huge impact he's had on darts within the sport, but also expanding it. But at this moment in time, is this the best move for Luke Littler? Probably not. Will he listen to me? Definitely not. So he'll be making an appearance on Sunday, and I hope it goes well for him, because
I hope he sticks ones in the top bins, but there's always that worry. Yes, it is confirmed he is going to play in the World Cup. I spoke to him in Liverpool last week off camera, and he forgot the World Cup was in Germany. But look, the story is good. The narrative's good. That now, look, we are set to have an unbelievable night at the O2. Yes, we still don't know the outcome, but we know Luke and Luke are there. And then whichever version of Gerwyn Price, Nathan Aspinall, or Michael Van Gerwen, it is going to be good. That it can't not be. But again, there are question marks around this Premier League format and so on. And again, I think they've kind of got away with it. Again, numbers mask. I'll be interested to see how tonight's viewing numbers fared when you had two huge Europa League games, a huge Europa Conference game, and a Premier League football game. In fact, it was like darts was relegated to, what was it, Sky Sports Action or whatever it was. So I'll be interested to see tonight's viewing numbers against others, because there was a lot on tonight.
Yeah, and of course it doesn't help either then when the night does run later than any other, I think, throughout the season. So it's sort of, this sort of night will definitely bring up the question of, is this the best format? As in, personally, not over 16 weeks. I think it's too long to just have this sort of quarterfinal, semi-final, final. As I quite like the idea of having a bigger pool of players, and you sort of have two divisions or two conferences or whatever, however you want to sort of define it, and bring more players in. But who those players are, I don't know yet, because I can't find 16. But that's another story for another night. But
I agree, and I want these big games to mean something. That when Luke Humphries, Luke Littler, Michael Van Gerwen, Price, and so on, when they play each other at the match play in a quarterfinal, semi-final, I want that game to mean something, because it's a huge game. Not them to read off, this is the 14th time they've met this year because they played each other God knows how many times in the Premier League.
Yeah,
I want these big games to mean something and be the huge game that we know they are.
Oh, yeah, exactly. When you sort of think Humphries and Price have played each other back to back in the Premier League, and as in that isn't how it should happen unless it's week 16, then the playoffs. Something needs to change to spice it up, because I just think it runs the risk of getting stale. And yes, they'll argue that everywhere's a sellout. It brings new crowd, new audiences in, but you run the risk of losing darts fans maybe to this.
I'm completely with you. Love the no worries, but look, I don't get the chance to rant on here very often, because normally I'm in the venue, and like, again, watching it at home tonight, I've seen it from a different angle, that something I don't get to see very often is the thing. So it's a really interesting one. How are we doing, Nendel? Good to have you in as always, my friend. But look, after Birmingham, we have a slightly clearer picture of it. But look, we're going to Leeds next week, and there is some huge ties, Carwin, that when we look at them, they are going to have a huge bearing. And I look at Littler Aspinall. We know Aspinall is more than capable of beating him, but the record is so stacked in Luke Littler's favour. The same as Luke Humphries, Michael Van Gerwen. Luke Humphries' recent record over Michael Van Gerwen is incredible. But all of a sudden, if they both go to the records, if Price can win, then he's almost ticked that box, because the ones below him will have lost. So there's a real dynamic because of the fixtures heading towards the First Direct Arena in Leeds next week.
Oh, exactly. And you think, you mentioned the two ties there, Aspinall, Littler, Van Gerwen, Humphries. Maybe the crowd will be in favour of one Luke and not as much of the other, due to his love for Manchester United. But it'll add to the excitement, and sort of knowing that Humphries can put to bed any doubt that he may slip out to the top four. Price can pretty much cement his place in the top four, and Littler can pretty much guarantee his top spot place. And all of a sudden, you've got a couple of points between Aspinall and MVG, and they're fighting for that fourth spot. So it's exciting, and I'd imagine the crowd would be well up for it, knowing there's so many permutations or potential permutations coming up at the end of the night.
Yeah, look, 100%. And look, it will be interesting. Say Aspinall and MVG both lose first round next week. They're likely to then double up, play each other in Aberdeen, and then Sheffield.
Yeah, and again, that just begs the question then again, sort of, does the format work? Where should you really be getting the two players fighting for fourth place playing each other in a quarterfinal back to back? They'll say it adds drama, but if MVG wins the first one and wins that night in Aberdeen, then 9-16 is irrelevant anyway because he'll be potentially too far ahead of Aspinall anyway. So, I think it needs looking at, but if it goes to the wire, then who knows? It might be worth it.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be interesting. But looking at Leeds, some been asked, will Luke get a good reception? They will play marching on together at the top of his walk-on, and the place will erupt.
Oh, 100%. And it's the perfect night for Humphreys to sort of put any doubt out of his head because he knows he'll have a full capacity crowd backing him, cheering him on, sort of singing the lead song, and I think it'll be a special evening for Luke Humphreys.
Yeah, look, 100%. And look, how do you see Leeds going as an overall night?
I actually think Little will probably bounce back now again. I think his blip's done. Yes, he'll probably have a mixed reception from the crowd, but I think his mojo will be back, and he'll just sort of mathematically cement his place at the top of the table. I think he could be an all-Luke final. The draw works out quite nicely for that. But I think by the end of next Thursday, top three will be sort of little Q next to their names for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. And chat room, what are you saying? How do you see this all going down? Who are you picking next week then, buddy?
So I think Price wins the first one. I think he wins 6-4. Cross again doesn't do much wrong. I just think he's in that sort of rut at the moment of playing well and not winning. I think Littler will beat Aspinall quite comfortably. Probably 6-2, 6-3, just because he's got his number, and I think Nathan might try a bit too hard, knowing if he could sneak a win, it could be the catalyst for him to leapfrog MVG back into fourth again. Humphreys, tight game with MVG because I think he's probably got his mojo back, but 6-4 and Bunting Dobie. Why is that the fourth quarter final? It's sort of no disrespect to the players. You sort of
again, I get it set in draw bracket order, but that game, it's just like again, it potentially sucks the life out of the crowd before the semi-finals. We found that that the atmosphere was good for 1 and 2. The third was an energy zapper, and then it was dead for the rest of the night.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're potentially going from Bunting Dobie to Price Littler semi-final, and it just sort of sucks the life out of it and kills the momentum. But you never know. I think Bunting Dobie is a toss of a coin, to be honest. I'll go Bunting, just because he's more likely to sort of hit 40% on his doubles maybe than Dobie. But yeah, Littler to beat Humphreys in the final then for me.
You're going Littler to beat Humphreys in the final. I think Littler's going to get it in Leeds as well because of the Man United Leeds connection.
Yeah.
So I think Price comes through the top half. I think he plays Humphreys, and I think Humphreys wins in Leeds, and they will go marching on together, especially if Leeds are champions. But that we'll know this weekend. If Leeds win the league, the likelihood is there's going to be a parade, and the city's going to be on a high. I can see some of the Leeds squad there and so on. It just could be an absolute party with Luke Humphries crowning it off. But if they're champions, we get the marching on together before we go into I Predict a Riot. Both huge lead songs. That first direct arena is going to be a cauldron for everyone else.
Oh, and it'll sort of, if that all happens, then Leeds Premier League night next week becomes historic and one that will be talked about for years. Because can you imagine? Yeah, I want to see that now. I'm not a Leeds fan, but I'd love to see that, just to sort of embrace what the night could bring, just sort of from a viewer perspective, because it needs a big lift after a couple of flat weeks.
Well, look, I've got to say, look, I'm not a Leeds fan either, but when you see Ellen Road all singing I Predict a Riot, it is spine tingling. Mm-hmm. So if that again is in the first direct arena as well, it's going to be something else.
Oh, huge. And Humphries will feed off that as well. As in, we often see him feed, be it in a good way or a bad way based on the support. But yeah, a bouncing arena for him is what we want to see.
Yeah, no, 100%. And look, I know it's I probably won't be on next week, so I'm going to get you to call it now. Out of the running, who is going to the O2 for you right now, Carwin?
So I think Littler's top seed, Humphries second seed, Price third seed, MVG. I called it early on when MVG went to the top four and Price was in. I said then I think this will be the top four come the O2. So I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, isn't it? And look, this Premier League is going to set up the rest of the year, because all these players then go into World Series events, World Cup. The match play now isn't that far away when we think about it.
No, it was what 6 weeks, 7 weeks now from the match play, and MVG is starting to go through the gears. Yes, we're not seeing the big numbers we're used to seeing, but he's finding a way of winning matches. And ultimately, if you can win games of darts, you progress in a tournament. It doesn't have to be the biggest numbers, biggest averages. It's about hitting one more double than your opponent. And I've got a feeling tonight, despite it not being a great night of darts, is going to be pivotal in MVG's year.
Well, the other one as well is you look at it, and I go back to the World Championships, that the same as the match play, he's only got to prep himself for one game a day. He hasn't got to worry about going and playing well and over again. It's that prep for one game. Look, going into the Worlds, no one really thought he was capable of getting to the final or even winning it. He did. He got there. So the way the draw is as well, that he's not going to face Humphries, because I actually think facing Littler is better for Michael than facing Humphries, because of the psychological record that Michael has beaten Luke Littler recently on TV, so he knows he can, whereas record against Humphries is an absolute stinker at the moment. So I think facing Littler is better for Michael at the moment, and a lot of people will go, what, really? But I think mentally it is for him.
Oh, definitely. Same with Price, I think. They just feed off each other more, and in a scrap, I think they believe they can beat Littler, where Humphries doesn't get involved. He just does what he does and will play you off the dartboard. So yeah, I completely understand what you say when you say Michael would prefer Littler to Humphries.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. And look, going off topic here, it's a pivotal week for players as well. The Euro Tour returns, the big guns are back. Gary Anderson returns, and Gary's one of those players. He needs to get himself out of this 16th, 15th spot on the order of merit. He either, this might sound daft, needs to get himself out temporarily, or 14, 13, 12 area, because at the moment he's always running into Luke in round 2 at the moment. Is he capable of winning? Absolutely, but you don't want to keep running into these players in round 2. Everyone says he needs to do better on TV. he needs to get himself out of that position.
Yeah, and it's sort of, that reminds me of a few years ago when Johnny Clayton was 15, 16, Price was 1 or 2, and they'd always face each other in the last 16. And for years, Price had Clayton's number. Clayton got up the rankings a bit, avoided Price to the quarterfinal. All of a sudden, momentum switches, and it's the same. It's the same with Gary at the moment. And he's capable of getting into the top 10, but because he's facing Luke's either or in round 2, it just means he's got to put a stellar performance in to get beyond them, and it's usually his final then, and he doesn't go deep into these tournaments. But yeah, it's a precarious position to be 15th or 16th in the world at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. It's a real interesting scenario. Remember, everyone, there is plenty coming up here at Online Darts. We have got the streams all weekend for the European Tour starting tomorrow at 12, and the big guns are back. It is going to be a great weekend of tungsten action. Sindelfingen is the destination for ET number 6, and here at Online Darts we have you covered. Jar is just working on the Luke Littler interview, so that will be live on our channel within the next 10 minutes or so you can check out reaction from the nuke as it happens. But thank you very much for the support. If you haven't yet, make sure you drop us a like and subscribe. But we have been Online Darts, myself, Phil Bars, and Carwin here on the Fallout Bar, as always, bringing you bang up to date with everything in the Premier League. Enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever you are doing, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Make sure you are there.